Elder Voxar stood on the observation deck of Sanctum Station, his silver-scaled hands clasped behind his back as he watched the sunrise over Terra, once called Earth. The ruins of human civilization lay scattered across the planet's surface like broken toys, monuments to a species that had consumed itself in the Great Collapse nearly 3 centuries ago. "Beautiful, isn't it?" asked Morrill, his research assistant. The young Ceteran's translucent fins fluttered with excitement. "To think we're the first xeno-archaeological team permitted to conduct ground operations since the quarantine was lifted." "Beautiful, but haunting," Voxar replied. "The Galactic Concord made many mistakes in their handling of humanity. By the time we recognized their potential, it was too late. Their research vessel, the Sojourner's Inquiry, would descend to the surface in just 6 hours. After decades of petitioning the Concord Science Directorate, Voxar had finally secured permission to study the ruins of human civilization up close. Remote scans had told them much, but nothing compared to direct observation. "The atmospheric scrubbers have done their work well," said Leori, the team's ecologist. Her fur rippled in iridescent waves as she reviewed the latest readings. "Toxicity levels are within acceptable parameters. It's remarkable how the planet has begun to heal itself," Voxar nodded. "Nature reclaims all, given time." The expedition team gathered in the briefing room, 12 researchers representing the Concord's premier scientific institutions. They would split into 4 teams to investigate different regions: North American megacity ruins, European agricultural reclamation zones, Asian underwater settlements, and African subterranean complexes. "Remember," Voxar cautioned, "we are observers. Only collection of artifacts is strictly prohibited without prior authorization. The tragedy of humanity should be studied with respect." Ollix, their security chief, checked the holographic map. "I've plotted safety corridors through all 4 zones. The structural analysis indicates minimal risk of collapse in these areas." "What about native fauna?" asked Pella, a nervous xenobiologist on his first expedition. "The evolutionary acceleration caused by the collapse has created some concerning predators." Ollix's mandibles clicked dismissively. "Nothing our defensive measures can't handle. Besides, most of the large predators avoid human ruins. Something about the residual chemical signatures repels them." Later, as the Sojourner's Inquiry began its descent, Voxar retreated to his quarters. On his desk sat a small, weathered book, an actual paper book, one of the few human artifacts legally exported before the quarantine. He ran his scaled fingers over the worn cover. "We failed you," he whispered to the absent humans. "The Concorde should have intervened sooner." The ship shuddered as it entered Terra's atmosphere. Voxar watched through his viewport as the ruined landscape grew larger. The northeast corridor of the former United States came into view, once teeming megalopolises, now reclaimed by forests and wetlands. The landing was smooth, and the team gathered at the airlock, checking their environmental suits one final time. As expedition leader, Voxar would be first to set foot on the surface. "Remember," he said, "we honor their memory by learning their story." The outer door slid open. Voxar stepped forward onto the soil of Terra, the first Ceteran to do so in nearly 3 centuries. The air was crisp, filled with the sense of vegetation and decay. The ruins of a human city rose in the distance, partially reclaimed by forest. And then, as Voxar took his 3rd step, the ground beneath him trembled. The tremor lasted only seconds, but it sent a ripple of unease through the expedition team. "Seismic activity wasn't in the forecast," Morrill said, checking her instruments. "Could be structural settling in the ruins," Ollix suggested, mandibles clicking with uncertainty. Voxar felt something else, an instinct honed through decades of fieldwork. "Log it and proceed, but stay alert." The team moved toward the ruins of what had once been called Boston. Nature had reclaimed most of the city, but the skeletons of skyscrapers still reached toward the sky, their once gleaming surfaces dulled by centuries of abandonment. "Amazing preservation," whispered Kethri, the architectural specialist. Her compound eyes reflected the ruined skyline. The humans built to last, despite their reputation for disposability. They split into their assigned groups. Voxar led the primary team toward what appeared to be a major cultural center, a complex of buildings that their records identified as a university. If they wanted to understand humanity's final days, educational institutions would contain the most reliable information. As they approached the ivy-covered structures, Liori's equipment chimed softly. "Energy signature detected," she said, surprise evident in her melodic voice, faint but unmistakable. "Impossible," said Virith, the technology specialist. "No human power systems could remain functional after all this time." And yet, Liori adjusted her scanner. "It's there, intermittent, coming from beneath us." Another tremor shook the ground, stronger this time. Loose debris cascaded from the buildings around them. "That was no natural earthquake," Oleg said. "Defensive posture, activating instinctively." The vibration pattern was too regular. Voxar felt his scales tingle with anticipation. "Maril, contact the other teams. Ask if they've experienced similar phenomena." Before Maril could comply, her communication device crackled to life. "Primary team, this is Western team," came the voice of Zalox, leading the European expedition. "We've experienced 2 seismic events and detected unusual energy readings. Request guidance." Then the Asian team reported in with identical findings. Finally, the African team confirmed the same pattern. "This is synchronized," Voxar said quietly. "Whatever's happening, it's planetary in scale." They proceeded cautiously into the university complex. The main library stood remarkably intact, its grand entrance still guarded by stone statues of human figures. Inside, natural light filtered through broken windows, illuminating dust motes that danced in the air. Rows of books, actual physical repositories of knowledge, lined the walls, many still perfectly preserved in this relatively protected environment. The human's insistence on physical information storage seems primitive until moments like this, Kethri observed carefully. Examining a bound volume, data crystals would have degraded centuries ago, Voxar nodded. Their redundancy had purpose. They didn't trust their technological infrastructure to survive catastrophe. They worked methodically through the library, documenting and scanning. Hours passed, and no further tremors disturbed them. Voxar had begun to think the seismic events might have been coincidental when Vireth called out from a lower level. "Elder, you need to see this." Voxar descended a staircase to find Vireth standing before an ornate door marked Rare Manuscripts. The technology specialist pointed to his readings. "The energy signature is strongest here. And look," he gestured to the door's electronic lock, where a tiny light blinked green. "Active power." "How?" Maril whispered. Before anyone could answer, the most violent tremor yet shook the building. Books tumbled from shelves, and ceiling tiles crashed down around them, and beneath the chaos, unmistakable now, came a sound, a deep, rhythmic pulsing that resonated through the floor and into their bodies. It wasn't an earthquake. It was machinery. Ancient, powerful machinery, awakening from centuries of dormancy. "Everyone out!" Voxar commanded as dust filled the air, and support beams groaned ominously. The team scrambled up the stairs and toward the exit, dodging falling debris. Outside, they regrouped beneath the shelter of a massive oak that had grown through what once had been a courtyard. The tremors subsided, but the rhythmic pulsing continued, a barely perceptible vibration beneath their feet. "Status report from all teams," Voxar demanded. Maril coordinated the communications. All teams report similar experiences. The Asian team was exploring underwater ruins when the seabed began to shift. They've retreated to higher ground. The energy readings are increasing everywhere, Virith noted, studying his instruments. Whatever's happening, it's accelerating. Voxar made a decision. We need to investigate that power source. Oryx, Moril, Virith, you're with me. The rest of you, return to the ship and prepare for emergency departure if necessary. Laori protested. The protocols clearly state. The protocols didn't anticipate active technology, Voxar interrupted. We won't have another chance to understand this. They re-entered the building, now more hazardous with structural damage. The rare manuscripts. Room's door had been damaged in the tremors, its electronic lock shattered. Inside, they found rows of climate-controlled display cases, many still intact. But what caught their attention was a section of floor that had collapsed, revealing a hidden chamber below. This wasn't on any of our scans, Virith said, adjusting his equipment. Some kind of shielding technology. A soft blue light emanated from the opening. Voxar approached cautiously and peered down into what appeared to be a laboratory of some kind. We're going down there, he said, a statement, not a question. Using their equipment, they created a stable descent route. The hidden facility beneath the library was pristine, untouched by the centuries of decay above. Sleek consoles lined the walls, their displays showing incomprehensible data in human script. This is impossible, Virith whispered, running his hands over the technology. Their systems couldn't have survived this long without maintenance. Unless they were designed to, Oryx suggested, ever suspicious. Moril's translator worked on the displayed text. I'm picking up recurring terms: Lazarus Protocol, deep sleep, awakening sequence. A particularly strong pulse shook the facility, and suddenly the screens changed in unison. A countdown appeared, displaying numbers that rapidly decreased. Is that? Oryx began. Time, Voxar confirmed. Less than 2 hours remaining. They explored further, finding more labs, and what appeared to be massive power generators. Everything hummed with energy, systems coming online after centuries of dormancy. In the central chamber, they discovered what the facility was built to protect. Row upon row of metallic pods, each approximately the size and shape to hold a human. Embody stasis technology, Virith breathed. We theorized they were working on it, but never confirmed. Voxar approached one of the pods. Its surface was opaque, but a status display showed vital signs, slow but unmistakably present. They're alive, he said, wonder and dread mingling in his voice. The humans survived. A mechanical voice suddenly filled the chamber, speaking. In an ancient human language, Moril's translator struggled but managed. Lazarus Protocol, final stage activated. Awakening process, 87% complete. Surface conditions acceptable. Revival imminent. Voxar's communicator chimed urgently. It was Laori from the ship. Elder Voxar. All teams are reporting the same findings. Hidden facilities with active stasis. Pods. The African team found what appears to be a central control hub. They're estimating thousands of pods across the planet. The implications crashed down on Voxar. Humanity wasn't extinct. They had gone into hiding, buried themselves deep, and waited for their world to heal. And now they were waking up. The Concorde had strict protocols for first contact situations, but this wasn't first contact. It was a reunion with a species presumed extinct. No protocol existed for this scenario. We need to alert the Concorde immediately, Oryx insisted, mandibles clicking rapidly with agitation. And tell them what? Voxar countered. That the species they abandoned might have reason to be hostile upon awakening? That would trigger a military response. The countdown timer showed less than 90 minutes remaining. Voxar studied the nearest, stasis pod, trying to make out the figure inside through the frosted surface. We stay, he decided. We witness. We facilitate peaceful reintroduction. Moril had been analyzing the data streaming across the facility's monitors. The system indicates this is one of 12 primary revival centers, each synchronized, each awakening simultaneously. A defense mechanism, Vireth concluded. If one facility were discovered and shut down, the others would still proceed. Smart, Oryx admitted grudgingly. The humans always excelled at contingency planning. Voxar instructed the other teams to maintain their positions and document everything. The Concord would need complete information to formulate an appropriate response. As they explored further, they discovered communication systems, historical archives, and technology far beyond what humans had been known to possess before the collapse. They were more advanced than we realized, Vireth said, examining a quantum computation array. They must have kept their best technology secret. In what appeared to be a control center, Moril managed to access historical records. The terminals activated, projecting three-dimensional images that told a story very different from the accepted narrative. The collapse wasn't self-inflicted, Moril said, voice trembling as she translated. According to these records, humanity detected a transmission, a warning from another species. Something was coming, something that had destroyed civilizations before. The images showed a desperate plan forming. Earth's nations uniting, building underground and underwater sanctuaries, developing stasis technology that could sustain millions. For centuries, they didn't destroy themselves, Voxar said, understanding dawning. They went into hiding, let the galaxy believe they were extinct. But why? Oryx asked. Another record played, a final message from someone identified as Secretary General Elisar. To those who find this record, we go to sleep now not in defeat, but in strategic retreat. The entity that hunts technological civilizations cannot find what appears to be dead. We have seeded false evidence of our self-destruction throughout our world. When we awaken, either the hunter will be gone or we will be ready. May whoever finds this understand, we did what was necessary to survive. The message ended, leaving the expedition team in stunned silence. The Concord quarantined Earth because they believed human technology had created planet-wide devastation, Voxar said slowly. But it was all staged, a planetary-scale deception. The timer now showed less than 30 minutes. Throughout the facility, mechanical systems whirred to life, preparing to revive the sleeping humans. We should leave before they wake, Oryx urged. Let the Concord handle this diplomatically. But Voxar stood firm. No, someone should be here to greet them, to explain what's happened in the galaxy since they went to sleep. They deserve that. Much. The tremors intensified as massive machinery deep below activated, beginning the final revival sequence. The final minutes of the countdown passed in tense silence. The expedition team had gathered in the central chamber, watching as the stasis pods hummed with increasing energy. Systems beeped and whirred, performing final checks before bringing their occupants back to full consciousness. What will we say to them? Moril asked, her fins quivering anxiously. The truth, Voxar replied simply, that the galaxy mourned them, that we're here to help. The countdown reached 0. For a moment nothing happened. Then, with a synchronous hiss, the lids of the stasis pods began to rise. Voxar stepped forward, preparing to face the first awakened humans. The pod nearest to him opened fully, revealing a woman with copper-colored skin and silver-streaked black hair. Her eyes fluttered open, deep brown eyes that immediately focused on Voxar with unexpected clarity. "You're not what I expected," she said in perfect galactic standard, her voice hoarse from centuries of disuse. Voxar's translator was unnecessary. She had spoken directly in the diplomatic language of the Concord. He struggled to hide his shock. "I'm Elder Voxar of the Seteran Historical Society. On behalf of the Galactic Concord, I welcome humanity's return." The woman sat up slowly, muscles working smoothly despite the long dormancy, evidence of advanced medical technology in the stasis process. "Admiral Nyara Ezkura, Earth Continuity Government, she introduced herself. Around them, other pods were opening. Other humans taking their first breaths of 25th century air. How long have we been asleep? 297 standard years, Voxar answered. Nyara nodded as if confirming an expected calculation. And the hunter? The entity we detected? Voxar exchanged confused glances with his team. We know of no such entity. The galaxy has been largely peaceful under Concord guidance. More humans were rising now, their movements becoming more confident with each passing minute. They showed no fear of the alien researchers, only curiosity and determination. Perhaps our warning system misinterpreted the data, said a tall human man, approaching Nyara's side. Or perhaps the threat changed course. Commander Iskander, Nyara acknowledged him, begin activation of communication systems. Contact the other revival centers. The efficiency with which the humans organized themselves was remarkable. Within minutes, they had established connections with other facilities around the planet. Reports flowed in, all revivals proceeding as planned. Minimal complications, Voxar observed with growing amazement. These were not primitive survivors, but a carefully preserved cross-section of a civilization at its peak. Scientists, leaders, engineers, and warriors, all awakening with clear purpose. You planned this meticulously, he said to Nyara. We had no choice, she replied. Our long-range sensors detected something consuming star systems at the edge of our exploration range. We sent probes. They never returned. Then we received a transmission, a warning from another species already falling to this entity. She gestured to a terminal, which displayed star charts unfamiliar to Voxar. We couldn't fight what we didn't understand, but we could disappear, let it pass us by, and preserve our civilization's core. The surface destruction was carefully orchestrated. Enough, real damage to be convincing, but calculated to allow planetary recovery. Commander Iskander returned with updates. All primary centers report successful revival. Secondary centers beginning activation now. Orbital platforms still dormant, but responding to wake signals. Orbital platforms? Olix asked, alarmed. Nyara smiled thinly. Did you think we would sleep unprotected? Earth's defensive grid has been maintaining silent watch all these centuries. The implications were staggering. Humanity had not only survived, but had preserved military capabilities that the Concord knew nothing about. What happens now? Voxar asked. Now, said Nyara, we rebuild and we prepare, because if our calculations were correct, the hunter is still out there, just taking a longer path. Within days, the true scale of humanity's preservation effort became clear. Nearly 10 million humans had been kept in stasis, a carefully selected group representing diverse skills, cultures, and genetic backgrounds. They had effectively created an arc of their species, designed to rebuild civilization once awakened. The Concord Council convened an emergency session. Voxar, as the scientist who had made first contact with the revived humans, was called to testify. They do not appear hostile toward the Concord, he explained to the assembled representatives, but they are absolutely resolute about their purpose. They believe a threat exists that we have not detected, something they call the Hunter, or sometimes the Devourer. High Chancellor Zovax leaned forward, his crystalline form catching the light. Our most advanced detection systems have found no evidence of such an entity. With respect, Chancellor, Voxar replied, humanity's detection capabilities appear to have been more advanced than we realized. Their warning came from a species called the Polrathi, who claim to be the third civilization targeted by this entity. The previous two are simply gone, stars and all. The council chambers filled with murmurs of concern. What are the humans doing now? Asked the Mathunzi delegate. Rebuilding, but selectively, Voxar answered. "They're focusing on defensive systems first. Admiral Ezkura has requested formal diplomatic relations with the Concorde, but they're proceeding with their preparations, regardless of our response." In the weeks that followed, humanity revealed more of what they had preserved. Massive orbital platforms emerged from camouflaged positions in the asteroid belt. Underwater cities rose to the surface of Earth's oceans. Hidden bunkers opened across the planet. The revival of Earth was unprecedented, a supposedly dead world coming back to life not through natural processes, but through meticulous planning spanning centuries. Admiral Ezkura stood beside Voxar on the observation deck of humanity's primary orbital station, watching as construction ships expanded the structure. "Your people thought we destroyed ourselves," she said. "In truth, we finally united. It took an existential threat, but we did what our ancestors could not. We set aside our differences for the greater good." "The Concorde is struggling to adjust to your return," Voxar admitted. "Some factions see you as a potential threat." Nyara smiled. "We're not interested in conquest, Elder Voxar. Earth sustained enough damage in our staged collapse that we'll be rebuilding for generations. What we want is to prepare and to warn." She gestured toward the stars. "Our calculations suggest the Hunter will reach your core systems within 50 years. Alone, the Concorde won't survive it. Together, we might." 3 months after the awakening, humanity made its formal presentation to the Concorde Council. They shared their data, their recordings of the Polrathi warning, and their defensive technologies, innovations that had remained hidden during humanity's brief earlier participation in galactic affairs. "We offer an alliance," Nyara told the Council, "not out of charity, but necessity. What comes for us cares nothing for biological distinctions or political boundaries. It harvests intelligent life and technological achievement wherever it finds it." The Mthunzi delegate rose. "How can we trust that this threat is real? You ask us to commit vast resources based on a warning centuries old." Commander Iskander activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber. It showed a section of space at the galaxy's edge. Where there should have been stars, there was emptiness, perfect unnatural blackness. "This was recorded by our deep space monitoring systems 1 month ago," he said quietly. "Whatever the Hunter is, it's still coming, and it's hungry." The evidence was irrefutable. Within days, the Concorde voted to form the Joint Defense Initiative with humanity as equal partners. Voxar found Nyara in the Earth Embassy garden after the vote, watching artificial rain nourish transplanted flowers. "Your species is remarkable," he told her. "You faced extinction and turned it into an opportunity. You slept for 3 centuries and awakened ready for battle." Nyara looked up at the simulated sky. "We didn't just preserve our bodies, Elder Voxar. We preserved our spirit, our determination to survive against all odds. Humans have always been at their best when facing impossible challenges." She extended her hand in the human gesture of friendship. Voxar took it carefully in his scaled fingers. "The galaxy thought we were extinct," Nyara said, "but we were just waiting for the right moment to return. And now that we have, we won't let this Hunter claim another civilization. Not yours, not ours, not any." Above them the stars shone, each one a world to protect, a future to defend. And on Earth below, once thought dead but now gloriously alive, the ground still occasionally trembled with the awakening of ancient machines as humanity rose once more. Not as conquerors, but as guardians. Not as a species reborn, but as one that had never truly died. The stars would not go dark, not while humanity stood watch.